So today on the Success from Within podcast, we have as always Dante Anderson, the Chief Operations Officer, and we have good brother Kamau with us. I say good brother because he is someone that has, as far as I've known him, which is over 20 years, something like that, endeavored to improve himself. Through improving himself, I know, old, right? And through improving himself, be a better resource to the community of humanity at large and locally. So today I have him on just to share some of his insight and thoughts and impressions on things. And as always, the point of this podcast is to prompt critical thought and then thereby prompt action towards self-sufficiency and personal protection and stuff like that. So let's get on with it. Dante, you want to say anything before we start? You want to let the brother get rolling? How you want to do things?
Oh no, man. Let's let Kamau get going. Yeah, the good brother got to say.
All right, cool. So Kamau, I believe today we want to talk a little bit about from what we spoke about earlier was police brutality, militarization, and what were some other points you want to address?
I think those are good based on the content of the show.
Okay.
Just police brutality and militarization. And also how that affects black gun owners.
Okay, and then black gun ownership. So I guess correlations, parallels, options, stuff like that. So a lot of times the gun shows the emphasis is to, I guess, pigeonholed on just the tool and the firearm. And one thing we always have to remember that a firearm is just a tool that is part of a system. So you can't just have a firearm and think that's going to solve things.
Right.
You have to have, multiple layers to it. You got to have networks, you got to have communication, you got to have support, got to have information, all those things. Like I know before when riots and other stuff were happening, you were doing announcements about police activity in neighborhoods and asking if everybody was okay, if anybody knew what was happening, who was involved, stuff like that. So these are all parts of, having a multifaceted system so that you can address different things, So let's have you first start and share a little bit about your experience working within the communities in terms of activism, in terms of, I guess, for lack of a better term, police monitoring and keeping them accountable, and just trying to, prompt people to be empowered so that they can live freely and live fully the way they want.
Yeah, it's all about empowerment. That's like the biggest thing right there.
Yeah.
Empowering people.
Mm-hmm.
Even when you talk about work in terms of activism and police accountability or police abolition, the goal really, all of that revolves around empowering the people to do all that stuff for themselves,
That's an interesting point. A lot of people think oh, well, we're going to abolish police. That just means there's no law.
Right.
So it mean I can go get ready for my raping spree. I'm about to swim.
Right. That's not how that works.
No, buddy.
No, that's not how that works.
No, that's not sustainable. That'd be like 2 weeks in Portland. We don't need that.
Right.
I haven't been in Portland. I'm just going from what the mainstream media has been saying. So please don't, put me on a cross. Anybody got direct experience to just talk about. We don't want Mad Max. That's not what we mean by police abolishment. Nobody's looking forward to Mad Max society. So you just mentioned, I didn't mean to cut you off. I'm just trying to, support you and tag onto it. The point that you spoke about empowerment and different systems, So abolishment of police doesn't mean that, oh, well, there's no more law. If there's loss of law, a rule of law, there's going to be no society at that point. That's what, it's funny how they always push it to extremes,
Mm-hmm.
There's plenty of middle ground.
There's plenty of middle ground.
Plenty of middle ground, and that's the majority of it is middle ground. Because you'll find out what works and what every community is different too. You have different needs. So speaking of what you're talking about in terms of abolishment and then different systems, empowerment. What do you see as some models? What do you see are some, I guess, issues with the current system? Be policing, law enforcement, however you want to take it. And then what do you see as some possible alternatives, or how would you like things to go? And you don't have to have, I'm not, saying you got to have all the answers, but what are your thoughts?
Right.
And how would
Please
you like
don't, because I don't.
That's another thing that happens all the time. So
well, let me teach you.
I'll point out something. I'll point out something to come out and be like, oh, political system's rigged. Well, what do you say we do instead? I'm saying this is a problem, so let's critically assess. I'm not saying I have all, because what they can do.
You should have all the answers, man.
What's your solution? And then as soon as I give half of a solution, they try to rip it apart. No.
Right.
I'm
You
not
gonna
giving
ask
that
me for it and then
easy.
tell me I can't do it.
Yeah, I'm not giving that easy scarecrow just so you can attack and be like, yeah, I beat your argument. Like, no. Then we agree that there's a problem here. And now that we agree there's a problem, let's look at different solutions, not my solution, our solution.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, well, I don't have one. You got it. Like, oh, yeah. Now you fall apart. So,
Trying to make me follow your solution.
oh, yeah. No. That goes back to the thing we were talking about earlier with Kamau, like is the level, different systems, different needs, and different ways of approach. You know, it all depends on what your resources are, what your goals are, et cetera, et cetera. So, go ahead, Kamau. I'm sorry.
Well, I mean, I think something you said just now, and you kind of like mentioned a couple times in terms of systems. When you talk about abolition, like right now, a lot of people talk about abolition in terms of defunding the police, because abolition is a process, right? You don't just, like you said, you don't want a Mad Max society, so you don't just jump in and like, ain't no cops nowhere.
It might be a good, it might be a fun weekend, depending on what crew you're hanging out with, but
right.
Yeah, it's not sustainable, bro. Not sustainable at all.
But it's like a mentality, right? Like you have to be in the mindset of, like, I don't need police, and you get into the mindset of I don't need police by building stronger communities.
Yeah.
And so a lot of times what we depend on, and what's actually helping out in Texas.
Hold on a second. I'm sorry, not to cut you off. Say, is there any way you can take notes while we're going through this? Because I want to talk about what that means by stronger communities. What does that look like? You know?
Right. This is really important too.
So you said talking about Texas right now. Go ahead.
Well, Texas, because like you mentioned a second ago, the mayor, like kind of like the mayor and the governors, they kind of like bailing on people.
Oh yeah, that's hilarious.
In Cancun.
You see that they have photos of Ted Cruz on a vacation?
Oh, Ted Cruz like, I'm out. Like, oh, it's a snow. I'm done.
He's like, electricity works in my estate. I'm out.
right. While everyone's suffering. So what Texas has been doing that's been helping them is mutual aid programs, right? When we say systems and support, we just call them mutual aid programs. And it basically means it's not a charity. It's not just people like, I have everything, so I'm going to give it to you. It's, these are things the community needs, and the community can come together and work on it and share that labor and these efforts so that everyone can come out better.
I think if you were to relate that to Kiswahili principle, that would be Ujima, something like that, collective work responsibility?
Yeah. It sounds like Ujima. Sounds like Ujima.
Look at me, man. I'm multicultural,
Yeah.
And I like guns, I'm not a red hat Trump supporting, that's because I like a gun, you pigeonhole.
And that's important too, because
pigeonholing sons of bitch. I'm sorry.
Yeah, when we talk about black gun ownership, we tend to fall into those ranks because when you talk about gun owners, everyone is either it seems like everybody's either on the pro-revolutionary side or they're on like this pro-American Second Amendment side.
Once again, I swear that's all just the propaganda and media, how they push stuff. Because like I've been doing firearm stuff for over a decade. Mm-hmm. I know when I first got into it, I was very apprehensive because I grew up in Philly, so people had guns were criminals or cops.
Right.
A lot of times they were the same.
right.
Like,
that's a staple we really got to get rid of.
Right? And I was like, I'm not a cop or a criminal. So I had that mindset, like if I stay away from it and don't put myself, quote unquote, the bad place at the bad time, I don't need to do that. Right. But like when I got older, I realized like it's not about a bad place, bad time. This stuff happens in life. Anytime you're near people, bad things can happen. Because most of the time, it's people doing this stuff. I'm not worried about like a random grizzly showed up and like running through my family. Like, all right, that might happen, but most times I'm worried about people. Yeah. So if you're around people, that can happen anytime, anywhere. And then the way our society is in terms of not addressing so many different mental maladies and just economic distress and all this other stuff, people can at any time explode. You don't know where to set them off. I could be in a self-checkout. I could be, going anywhere, and someone could be having a bad day. The cop just harassed them, whatever. Boss just talked to them any sort of way, whatever. And it's just like, you know what? I lost it today. Like, it's a wrap. Like, I'm just going off. So in those situations, I know, especially after I started having children, I was like, there's no way I'm going to ever be in a situation where I can't at least respond. I'm not going to start trying to make a salat praying to my ancestors. Like, I might do that, but I'm going to act here. I'm going to
do that in my head.
Yeah, because like a lot of things people don't realize, which the media and movies, once again, are propaganda, don't show. If I'm an active shooter and I'm shooting, reloading, dumping, and I start taking rounds, it's kind of hard to reload. Either I got to dodge or I'm bleeding out. One of the two. And either way, that person no longer actively shooting. They were acting at that point. So, I mean, that's like, that's an oversimplification, but sometimes it is just that simple.
Well, yeah, because you see that in videos all the time, and different videos that we show from home invasions and things like that. You get these guys who kick in doors, or you know what I mean, who run up the houses and they carrying guns, and it's all fine and well till you know the homeowner starts shooting back, then everybody scatter. You know what I
And
mean?
even not even shooting back a lot of times. It's not always a gun. I saw this video. They had to be elders. They, you know, senior citizens, whatever. Some dude came in with a gun to hold up a place. I don't know what happened. The old lady's like, yo, this is my bread shop. Like, you're not holding up my bread shop. And she did what the old ladies do. She hit him with an effing purse. And then, like, he stumbled. And then her old man followed up. And they wrestled. These two geriatrics are wrestling with this dude. And he can't get his gun, like, back into the fight. And this is these two, like, 80-year-old dudes fighting this guy. And then everyone else is like, oh, man, they're fighting. I was like, why do we have 150 plus years worth of experience trying to fight this one dude and no one else is assisting? But it wasn't even another gun in the fight. They changed the dynamic, you know?
Right. Well, you know, we've talked about this before, man. Criminals aren't expecting to be attacked. You know what I mean? They're looking for prey. You know what I mean? So they're not expecting anybody to come back at them, especially not, you know, 2 80-year-olds swinging purses. You know what I mean?
It was so cute. I was like, bless her heart. She hit him with the purse, and then he's like, whoa, and then and then her husband's like, no, and like they started wrestling with me. I was like, yo, her husband's like, I got you, baby girl. But she literally hit him with the purse, like, stop that. And he was like, oh, I'm gonna get you, you old hussy. And then her husband's like, not today. And they started wrestling with me, and it was hilarious. And so back to the point you're talking about, like different systems, community strengthening is what you mentioned, Kamau.
Yeah, mutual aid.
I'm sorry, yeah, mutual aid. So I mean, that's one of the biggest things I always try to focus on myself in terms of like skill bartering, in terms of just learning from other people's strengths and helping support each other. So like I might not be strong at everything. Like one thing I'm deficient at, I suck at cleaning. My house be kind of, you know, rough sometimes. So I try to have my children build up those skills because they're building different skills and habits that I don't have, so they can do better than me, for one.
Absolutely.
Two, I have people like, hey, you come over, help me clean. I'll bake some cookies. I can bake. I can help you with this. Like, I'm all for that stuff, you know? So mutual aid is a fantastic thing. And the funny thing, from my impression, mutual aid is kind of contradictory to the whole Western capitalism type model. It's much more akin to a more classical model from antiquity and a lot of other non-Western societies. You know, you would have mutual pots for storing grains, you have mutual resources, you have mutual militias, like if you got to defend, all that stuff. So I like that because like in older societies, you didn't have necessarily set roles like, oh, I'm a policeman, I'm this, I'm that, whatever. You all share different roles, and depending on the situation, you would pick up certain hats.
Exactly.
You know? So I love that. That's the old model, but I love that. I mean, I talk to my friends all the time about when we're talking about politics. They're like, oh, well, you can't do egalitarian type society. It's never worked. I was like, you don't read you read a history book that's not written by a white guy, maybe? Like, the world's been around for a long time, and a lot of societies have survived by pooling stuff, pooling resources, pooling responsibility, and just working together. It's not rocket science per se, you know? Like if Kamau has X, Y, and Z, you know, loads of bread, but he needs A, B, and C, and I have an extra, I can help him out because his needs are greater than mine. And then conversely, he could reciprocate in different capacity. But you know, I'm sorry. Go ahead. I'm rambling.
No. I mean, I completely agree with you. I would venture to say probably most of the world was egalitarian in that sense before, you know, the imperial folks started going around and conquering everything.
Yeah, because I mean, go ahead.
Once you introduce like different like class levels, well, then all the other stuff goes out the window because like if I want the most things, I have to take things from somewhere.
Yeah,
right? Like
that's a perfect point. That's a perfect point. I always say about economics and anything, it doesn't happen in a vacuum. Mm-hmm. So like even power, you know, force continuums or whatever. Like if you show up and you're trying to, let's say for example, a police officer, right? The police officer pulls you over. Not today.
See, I put mine on silent. You gotta put yours on silent.
I know. See, the professionalism is out the window. All right, forget y'all. All right. But all right, let's say a police officer pulls you over, right? So at that point, you have to decide: will I comply or not comply? Will I yield or not yield? Because if not, then you're fighting. But as you yield, it goes. The power starts going towards us and stuff like that, you know. So it's very simple because if you start fighting with a cop, then the cop's just in a fight, and then he has to call for backup to change that continuum to add more to the side and stuff like that. So It's very interesting. Same thing with economics. If I'm a millionaire, how did I get my millions? I didn't go out and like start, planting seeds like John. No, I use a whole bunch of people who are worked, and then I took their labor, resources, intellectually, whatever, and then I profited off of that. And then I took that, and I profited off that. So you are taking from other people to gain stuff. So nothing happens in the vacuum.
Hey, just a heads up, we got about 9 minutes before Zoom closes on now.
All right, I'm about to upgrade this, John.
Okay.
Go ahead. All right, so go ahead, come out. What you talking about strengthening communities and such like that. You're talking about the mutual aid, right?
Yeah, I was talking about mutual aid. Okay. Mutual aid. When we talk about, we came from abolition, and we talked about how we not talk about Mad Max societies, right? And how you kind of structure things, what kind of structure you can give to things so that you can function without police. And mutual aid is one of those big things that you use to do that. In Philly, for a little while, people were talking about creating a rapid response network.
During the riot?
No. Well, I mean, depends on who you ask. I don't know if I call them riots, but still, before any rebellions or anything happened, before there was any uprisings or anything going on in Philly, people were talking about having a rapid response network so they just wouldn't have to call the police.
No, I'm sorry. What was that term you used? Because I use riot to use another term. What was it?
Rebellions, uprisings. It depends on who you ask.
Yeah. No, I just want to hear it because I missed it. That's all.
But yeah, people were talking about creating a rapid response network because people were trying to move away from contacting the police for everything. And as we know, there are a lot of things police, like, even if you believe in the concept, there's a lot of things police are just not equipped for. Police are not equipped for
mental health.
For mental health, for child emergencies, for domestic disputes often, for anything petty, like anything at first, or like anything petty, like, oh, he stole a bag of chips. The police officers are not going to do nothing but show up and arrest the person because that's all they can really do. That's theft. I'm arresting you. And, depending on the situation, that may not be a useful thing. You might really be messing up someone's life because they're really hungry and they stole a bag of chips.
Yeah, man.
And so people were trying to create a rapid response network to be able to deal with those different things without the police. But I don't think it didn't actually get off the ground just because of the level of effort involved in creating such a thing. A lot of times that's what hamstrings a lot of abolition, which is why like the current struggle is to defund.
You mean people actually having to do work?
Well, it's not so much the work, right? But it's the resources. People don't realize this, right? Police take up a lot of resources. In LA, I think the police budget is $1 billion. In Philadelphia, the police budget is near $1 billion. Between police and prisons, it's like 700 million, plus extra overtime money. It's like near $1 billion.
You heard about $1 billion lobby for a whole bunch of add-ons for the police?
I mean, yeah, it's add-ons. The whole sugar tax. A good portion of that went to police riot gear, which appropriately was used. A couple of years later.
Really does the best.
But that's what you're looking at, right? So you tell the people, I can't afford your school, right? I can't afford to send you to school, even though I know it's gonna keep you out of prison. I can't afford to fix your house, right? I can't afford. Oh, we got 5 seconds. I can't afford anything else that you need. These needs that you have, and it's because I'm giving all this money to police.
Yeah. Yes, man. I can't afford to support you, but I can support these prisons.
Right. Exactly.
We got to make sure our police are taken care of.
The police get new cars. You still are homeless. And in Philly, they definitely will write like tickets for loitering. If you're homeless in front of the store, if you're begging for change, they will arrest you. So I mean, it's not a good look. It's not helping anybody. But they don't put the money into the services they need, so you continue the problem, and it becomes like a racket almost. Police take
almost,
a lot of money
almost, just a little bit.
Look at Kamau being a diplomat. He politician, he played both sides. Almost.
Just a little bit.
They definitely like
something new out today.
It's like I compare them to like the samurai, like the old school samurai. They come into your township and take all your shit.
Yeah, I know the 7 Samurai. I love that shit.
Yeah,
actually, those I forget what those were.
The tax.
Yeah, it's an interesting thing. So we spoke about the difficulty with the mutual aid return of resources. So, what are your experiences and thoughts on it? Because like I know for several times I've tried building up different things in terms of gun clubs, et cetera, stuff where I'm like it's for free, you know, because I have for profit and I have for nonprofit stuff, and like I have been unsuccessful in people following through after I set up stuff, and I don't know what or why, but that's why I went back mainly to just charging people because I would do so many free things and people like show up halfway through, show up, you know, at the end trying to make it an extra hour longer. Like, yo, this is from this time to this time, bro. Like, and like it's just really crazy. So I was just like, I'm gonna just charge people because at that point, when you invested money, then you know I'm gonna show up on time because you got some skin in the game, you know. But like I've ran into so many issues where I've tried to have things where I try to offer resources and or just find resources for people and support, and then they don't have the support they need to actually go through with the programming and stuff like that. So do you have any impressions or thoughts on how to, I guess, for lack of a better word, engage people so that they are more invested? Because as we said, with a vacuum, there are no vacuums. So you have time for work, you got time to watch ESPN, you got time for your PlayStation, you got time for your mixtape. You got time for mutual aid if you want to do that. It's just depending on what you prioritize, you know? Like you made yourself available today. We could all be doing different things, taking naps, whatever. So what are your thoughts and impressions in terms of engagement and or I guess the issues and or thoughts on trying to maybe improve it? What has been your experience in terms of getting people to actually put, lack of a better word, the rubber to the road to get things going?
I think it's a couple things. I think the first thing is you kind of have to go where the people are, which is frustrating sometimes. You know, like you said, like if you just offer it, you know, people may or may not show up because essentially you're saying like, if you want this information, make the time in your space, make the time in your schedule, show up here where I need you to be, right? And there's nothing wrong with that at all, but it's just, you know, you may or may not get people. Like, it depends on what they're capable of. So one easy solution to that is to just do it free in public. We've had success with doing just giving out the basic gun safety rules, just like just on a megaphone,
which are surprisingly useful.
Which right, like half the
people don't even know, man.
You know, half the people that get killed by accident with guns would not happen if they followed like 3 of the rules.
Yo, ignorant one of the rules. Your finger off the trigger unless you're ready to shoot.
Right. One rule. Save everybody alive.
Unless I'm ready to buck, my finger should not be on the trigger. That will solve you every shooting that ever happens. Unless you got some crazy stuff with, you know, antiques and somebody did something to it.
So that's always like a real easy thing you can do. Some other things are like understanding the needs of people, right? So it's one thing to talk about because we talk about firearms specific. So education is a big need, right? And so giving that education free is a big thing. The other thing is getting the information to people, like in terms of where you're, like if you want to do a specific workshop, getting that information to the people you want to get to, right? So when we talk about doing it outside in public for free, then you get into the knuckleheads, right? You get to people who like may not normally pay attention, but they're just outside, so they
just bored, you know. They try to heckle or whatever.
Yeah, I mean, but that's still useful because them knuckleheads be home, and you know, I've had people from my home area where their child died because they left a loaded gun on the table. You know what I mean? Like, so these are things like.
I heard about a sister got killed and one of her children got shot, and I think it was Detroit recently.
Yeah, recently.
They went in her purse and
I read about that.
Yeah, that's crazy.
And those type of things would be changed by that, you know. And you could probably went to her block or whatever in Detroit and just been on a megaphone for like an hour or so.
And they prevented it.
Yeah. But the other is people who actively want that knowledge.
Oh, it wasn't Detroit. I'm sorry. It was in North Carolina.
Okay.
Cornelius.
But there's people who actively want that knowledge and they just don't know where to get it, right? So, you know, I would give myself a little bit of time. And whether you charge or not, you know, but both of those are probably useful. But I would give it a little bit of time, a little bit of space to like advertise and be consistent. You know what I mean? Like offer the class once a month. You know, that way you're always going to have people who straggle in late and be like, yeah, can you go over everything you went over just now, like from the beginning, from the top? But those people, like, you know, for whatever reason they showed up like that, if you tell them, well, no, but you can come back next month or next week, they'll probably like follow up with you, right?
Here's the rules, yo. All right, about.
I know the what's his name? I'm not a big fan of him, but the guy Maj Toure, when he first started, he was doing those gun trainings at was it Philly Training Academy or whatever?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And he would do them like weekly or monthly, and he would get people like people would miss one, and then they would be able to sign up for the next one, and so you could continuously rotate people in and out.
Mm-hmm. Well, those are some good points. That's another thing that's hard because I myself run a couple different businesses, and I have 4 children. So once again, being able to do everything all the time for free, it's all about, like you said, the mutual aid and resources.
Yeah.
Where you don't have to make it about one person. We got several people doing it. And I agree fully. Like, it's all about information. Anytime that ignorance impacts a life negatively is very sad, because all you need was a little bit of education.
Yeah.
Be that how to do first aid, which is something that's very neglected. Be
That's
that how
another one.
Swimming.
Yeah.
I run into people all the time, full-grown adults. They can't tread water out of like where you fall face first in the kiddie pool, which is a rat, a big bowl of soup. It's just over.
I mean, but those are important traits and important skills you gotta learn.
That's basic stuff. Like, I don't expect you to be Michael Phelps, but know the basics so that you can, one, survive and live life and be a resource to others. You never know.
To me, it seems like majority of the people who I run into, they're just with everything, whether it's firearms training or just preparing for emergencies, or like you say with swimming. It just seems like so many people who I run into just don't think they need it until something tragic happens. I never needed to know how to swim until my 5-year-old drowned in the pool. You know what I mean? So it's like it's trying to get people, or what my goal right now is trying to get people to see and understand that you need to prepare for these things before life come knocking at your door like, yo, let me in. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Oh, that's the goal that I'm trying to reach right now, and the goal that I think is that we share, Adrian, is trying to get people to realize and understand. You know what I mean? That is you have to be proactive. So. Yep. How do you suggest going about convincing people of that?
Well, Kamau, you're for lack of a word, you focus on preparedness and preparation and like other stuff. So how did you come to that mindset and that lifestyle of like trying to be ready for stuff? How did your journey to it? And what do you think are the pros and cons and value to other people and issues they have in approaching it themselves?
I was talking about this earlier with a friend. We're all like a product of the experiences we've had, the people that's been in our lives, and the circumstances we've grown up in. So, growing up poor in Southwest Philadelphia, and West Philadelphia, like in Philadelphia in general, you see a lot of unprepared people and the things that happen because you're unprepared, because you don't have a defense. You don't have a backup can of soup.
I think I'm gonna learn martial arts.
So you see that a lot. In defending myself, you learn I took up martial arts. So my teacher, Omagazi Mshindi, of Mshindi V Designer, he's very big on being prepared.
What age did you start with him? You did the Jazzy Jeff jump.
So I think I started. I think I started maybe like 10 or 12. And then it was like an off and on thing, like summer training or whatever, until 16. And 16 is when I really got like more serious.
I didn't train with Umagazi, but I remember I sat with one session as that Academy of the Way back in the day. And one of the first things he told me, which I was a young man, I was a kid. And he's like, when you get into a fight, break their nose. I was like, huh? He's like, you break their nose and they get incensed. Now, that's not his voice. That's just my martial arts master voice. All right. So don't anybody hold it against me. I apologize, Umagazi, Cindy, your ancestor. I'm not trying to do you dishonor.
I'm sure he was giving good advice.
Yeah, but it's funny. He said you break their nose and it gets them incensed, and then they lose control. So they start throwing wild punches, and it's easy to, you know, provoke them, and then you can control them. And I was like, that's a cool lesson because it's true. You know, most people are unskilled, and most people are very emotional, and emotion can be a very bad thing in a fight if you don't know how to control and meter it. So you said you started with Umagazi, and what else? Like you said, a product of your environment. What do you think about the value of it, and what do you think in terms of people who just don't think they need to prepare for things? Like, oh well, I've never been in a fight. Like, okay.
We see examples of people who aren't prepared every day, right? Like we were just talking about Texas. Texas is a hard situation because, again, I don't think anyone could have seen that coming. But there are other things that you could have seen coming that would have helped the situation. Like you could see a lack of power, especially knowing anyone who knows. I didn't until recently, but anyone who knew that Texas was on its own separate power grid probably would have been able to foresee that. Like if the power goes out, we're going to be out for a while. So having a generator would be a good idea. Anyone can see, well, whether the power goes out or not, having a flashlight, right? That's like one of the most basic things you can do. Have yourself a flashlight and a knife,
Some candles. They have these emergency candles that last over 24 hours. That will give you
emergency candles, emergency fire starters, all that stuff.
And the funny thing is, this stuff is relatively cheap. Like emergency candle's not gonna run you $200. It's a candle.
Yeah.
It's like $10.
Yo, a rechargeable backup flashlight is like $14.
Yeah. Well, I gotta get those new J's, man. I gotta get the new J's, man.
So yeah, I mean, those are the type of things that's like, anyone in Texas can do that stuff. Everybody can be prepared that way, and that goes everywhere. Like you could be in Philadelphia when the pandemic hit, right? On a note on preparedness, Umagazi's quote: "If you stay ready, you ain't got to get ready."
I think he came up with that quote. It's a good one.
Classic, yo.
Classic Umagazi.
And during that pandemic time, when March hit, I already had all my stuff. I went to the store and brought like a couple extra things. People didn't really realize what was going on yet.
I was low on deodorant. I'm not gonna lie. I was low on deodorant.
Right. but you still had like everything else, right? You might have been a little funky, but you can eat. And so when the shelves went bare, when I finally went to the market and saw that they emptied out the shelves, I wasn't as bothered. I mean? Like, I still felt like, man, it's messed up. And I was hoping I had enough to make it through whatever time I need to make it through. But I wasn't as bothered because I knew I had stocks. I knew I had stuff saved up, from preparation. And anyone can do that. That's another thing anyone can do. Even if you don't have, Umagazi was big on being prepared, even if you don't have all the things you need to be prepared, right? If I don't have a house, and I don't have a house and I don't have a pantry to store 6 tons of dry food in, it doesn't mean that I can't have a few bags of peanuts, a few bags of beef jerky, a few bottles of water that take very little space, so I can have something when things go bad.
They also have those rations, the dry ration things that just give you calorie intake. The funny thing is, I don't know what happened, but they said like on the internet you weren't able to find like bug out bags, like Google started blocking stuff or whatever. But like it's that whole thing, like trying to prepare once you in it, like trying to learn how to fight in a fight. It's gonna be rough. It's gonna like Dragon Ball Z, like you just have some premonition power. Like nah, bro, like you gotta know how to take a punch. You gotta know how to dodge. You gotta know how to dump somebody on their head. Like you can't
before you get in it.
Yeah, you can't try to figure it out halfway through because they're gonna wait for you while you try to figure it out. They're gonna be feeding you on the uppercuts, or whatever else it might be, bullets, knives, bats. Like you gotta know well before then what it feels like to go through it and what it feels like to persevere. So the preparedness thing was funny because people come by and they'll be like, "Hey, Aide, you got a lot of food." Like, yeah. Hey, you got a lot of this. Because it's all about what you value and what is worth. That's one thing I go to a lot in terms of for trainings and stuff. People's like, oh man, that's a lot of money. It's 200, 300. I was just looking at something recently. they were charging. How much do you think they were charging for a 2-day course at a training facility in Florida?
$3,000.
Yep, 2 days.
$1,000 a day.
Yo, bro, I was like, yo, if you ain't got 250, like, I understand, like, it's rough for everybody, but like, it's all about investing. Like, you invested 250, it's gonna be cheaper than going to the ER. You gotta get stitched up. It's gonna be cheaper.
A lot cheaper than the funeral.
It's gonna be a lot cheaper than the funeral. It's gonna be a lot cheaper than the spiritual and emotional stress of dealing with whatever happened. And like, I've had survivors come and like they're like, yo, after something tried to happen, I was prepared mentally, and I didn't have to go through that trauma again. I'm now can approach my trauma better, and I don't need my therapist anymore because I'm able to rationalize and empower myself because now I don't feel fearful anymore. I feel capable. I feel, and it's a process, But like as we all know, like nothing's free in life. You gotta figure out what you want to do and how you want to do it, and what your cost is going to be it time on up front where you it's investing, or be it time on the back end where you're trying to recover and or deal with it, So I think the preparedness thing's a big thing. I sadly, I've ran into people where some people are just like, oh, well, that's not for me. That's not my life. I was like, oh, I don't know what to do with that, Kamau. I don't know how you think. I've ran into people that like legit, like old school classic, like pacifists, like, oh, well, whatever happens. I was like, wow.
Whatever happens, happens.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think Umagazi came with that one too. I think. Umagazi, yo, he's a cool dude, man. I like his hot, cold nature. He's an interesting brother, man.
I don't think he was ever hot, cold either. He was. It is what it is, and that's what we doing. We're not doing hot and cold, up and down.
Yeah.
In fact, you know what? That's another Umagazi quote. He used to really not like the idea of people straddling the fence.
You in or you in?
You either doing it or you're not doing it, but we're not doing that back and forth, wishy-washy stuff. No,
it's true though. It's true though. You gotta commit. I mean, about what you're about.
Commit.
Right, so I think we didn't address a little bit. We talked about systems, but we didn't talk any at all about like police. I guess brutality. That's such a. I try not to use cliche terms, but I mean they do be brutal in community.
I mean, but that's what it is. It's brutality and really murder too, because when you talk about it, you're not talking about like if we were just talking about like, oh, the police beat this guy up or whatever, then maybe you could have some argument against abolition. Even you could be like, oh, we can keep them around, they just need some training. But at this point, we done seen the police murder kind of indiscriminately. Like it's been so many cases of people, sleep in their car, came to the door with a phone, reached for their license to carry, and they try to. A lot of proponents of police or protectors of that system will try to point to criminality and say, well, if they complied, if whatever. But we see all the time, like not only do police get such a pass that they often do things wildly out of any law or any legal, repercussions, like the case of Rekia Boyd, where I'm not familiar with the name. I got like a whole wealth of like cases. I'm just gonna rattle stuff off. But Rekia Boyd was a black woman in Chicago, and she was with a group of friends. And I don't know if they stopped the cop from like moving in his car, or somehow they got on this ex-cop's nerve, this off-duty cop's nerve, right? Mm-hmm. He was off duty. Hey.
Say, brother, come out. Say hi.
Hi. I know. I ain't
What's up, Nash?
I know he's the newest one. He's fresh out the packaging, yo. All right, you gotta go upstairs. Yeah, we're done with you.
But yeah, so she somehow got on this off-duty cop's nerves, and the off-duty police officer pulled his weapon and just fired, like indiscriminately fired at her, struck her in the head. She dies. And the justice.
So this was from a vehicle, or where was the interaction happening?
I believe it's from a vehicle. But to be honest, like whether he got out the car or was walking, or like this is no way you should be firing randomly, in the direction of anybody. Like that's attempted murder. You kill them, that's murder. Like there's no other legal
definition for it. Yeah.
Yeah. Like if I did that, I would be on the hook for murder. I would not be on the hook for manslaughter or, you know, accidental death or anything like that.
That's an interesting thing. With the brother who was killed out the truck, they hunted him down, and they said the reason they didn't go for murder and stuff because they were initially concerned about being able to prove it because it's about like intent and stuff like that. So they always say, oh, we'll go for the lesser one because we could definitely get that one, which is an interesting approach because sometimes you can see that the rights that it would be X, Y, and Z, like without doubt, but they go for something else just because they don't want to risk perhaps.
And that was the problem with Rakia Boyd's case.
Yeah.
Right. So on the legal side of things, because they were worried about getting a first-degree murder conviction, they went for manslaughter.
Mm.
And oddly enough, the judge was like, yeah, well, we're not going to convict them for manslaughter. You should have went for first-degree murder.
That judge ain't shit, yo.
Insanity.
That judge ain't shit.
Like, how can you? And so when you have a system like that, right? When you have a system like that,
you're damned if you don't.
Right.
Right. Where do you go for recompensance? Like, how do you deal with that? How do you talk to?
Nah, I'm busy right now. You can eat it. You can take it upstairs. Okay.
So, you know, at this point, it's just like people have a hard time dealing with the concept, but it's kind of like when slavery existed in America. You know, the outright ownership of black people.
Shadow bondage, slavery.
Yeah. When that existed here, people couldn't imagine life without that system either. They said, well, how is Mississippi supposed to make any money?
Mm-hmm.
I can't work in these fields.
Right.
I don't know how to operate on people. I don't know how to operate on people's brains and hearts. That Negro Jim over here.
Who's going to milk the cow?
Who's going to make me Jack Daniels?
Have you seen the size of my farm? Like, yeah, so they really couldn't fathom paying people.
Who's going to teach me astronomy?
But eventually it did change. Eventually people, you know, figured it out. And, you know, the black people was like, fuck this anyway. I'm not going to continue to do this shit. So
I hope black people feel the same about a lot of the political systems that are
I feel like we're in the same place.
That stuff blows my mind how many of us are invested so deeply in the politics, man. I was like, what you say?
I was going to say it's the same with, you know, those insurrectionists that went to the Capitol. Funny enough, a lot of them had like Blue Lives Matter flags.
Why they beating up the cops?
Right. Right. So when the cops is murdering black people, it's like, oh yeah, Blue Lives Matter, I got to support them. But as soon as, you know, you in a position where they're going to tell you what to do, they're like, oh, well, no, you can't eat this flag.
It's interesting. So to your point, talking about like, you know, just considering things without certain systems, you know, with the police thing, I agree. The inability to have them being culpable and responsible and change, you know, like putting charges on someone means a goddamn thing if they don't get convicted. It also means a goddamn thing if they could just leave and go to another department. Right. It also means a goddamn thing if they could just be sued and they don't pay, the department pays. It also means goddamn like, so all this stuff lacks what is real justice, which is, you know, seeking balance, equity, you know, restoration, you know. Granted, you can't really ever balance or pay for a loss of a life, the trauma to a family, but there has to be at least an attempt to make that whole, and that's not happening. Mm-hmm. I agree with community empowerment. Having communities police themselves, and I don't like that term, but I agree with having communities take empowerment and take ownership responsibility. To have that, you once again have to have it on multiple levels. It has to be education, has to be healthcare, has to be religion, sexuality. Like you have to approach all these things so you guys are working together, have commonality, have investment, have mutual aid, and people are responsible. For lack of a better thing, a better example, I remember growing up, things were happening. If you were being a piece of shit, then the community would see to you about being a piece of shit a lot of times. Like if you're bullying somebody, all right, granted, kids are being kids, but if you just see like, all right, somebody older in the community comes see you, right? A couple people come see you, or you touch somebody's niece or nephew a certain way, like, yo, you touched him, did what? Oh, where he at? Oh, all right, kitty. Same thing with drug dealers. Like if a drug dealer get a little too out of pocket, like, yo, man, you need to chill out. Like some old heads come see him, or some other drug dealers come see him, like, yo, young boy, you're doing things wrong. Like, yeah. But I'm not in those circles per se nowadays, certain stuff, because my circle's gotten smaller just because of certain things. But I don't know those things are still happening, but I knew there were. Yeah.
Yeah.
But there was more things to it. Like people don't even know their neighbors' names nowadays. Stuff like that is craziness. So I'm all for that mutual aid, community empowerment and building. And people have to, like I said, for lack of a better word, just make time for it. You have to care and invest in it. You know, like we're on here
Absolutely.
talking now, hopefully to prompt some conversation and prompt some action from there to it helps people. You know, that's the whole basis of it. That's why I call it success from within. You know, like you work on stuff and then you bring success through working on yourself and through working with others. So I'm all for that ticket about community empowerment, strengthening, and changing how things function because I always liken it to political system, to the policing system. They're doing what they're made to do, and that stuff isn't to help us. People are like, oh,
Right.
well, we got a black police chief. Oh, we need Stacey Abrams to run for president. Like, like, is he gonna like give us our 40 acres and a mule? I'll vote for it. Give me 40 acres, and like, I don't even need a mule. I'll work it myself. Give me 40 acres, bro. Like,
I'm first in line.
yo, I'll vote for it. I'll wear
First
a
in
hat.
line.
I'll get it tattooed on my back. Like, no, but that stuff's not happening. You got Kamala Harris when they be like, oh, what are you gonna do for black communities? I can't speak to just one community. So like imagery's cool, but we get caught up in too much of the pageantry and how much it looks, you know.
Yeah.
We get caught up in too much of the literally it's political theater. It's a game. They're playing positions. Why is my son back again? Oh, look at his face.
Trying to get down the conversation.
He ate something.
So I gotta be on camera too.
I know.
I ate some waffles.
Made some waffles. They're very nutritious, not waffles, right? They got whole grains in them. Like, get out of here. You're talking too much. Go upstairs. So I'm all for that stuff. So I appreciate. I guess we can kind of start wrapping up. We can always talk for an hour at length. We can maybe follow up on some different topics, but regarding, you know what, we should figure out some content, some books. I didn't actually prepare for it, but some content on mutual aid and then community empowerment. Those would be some good articles. Just even having people referring. Just think about it. Some people have written what they thought about it. Some books on that topic. I have looked up some stuff for militarization of police. I was talking to one of my friends the other day, and who was it? I can't remember. But we were talking about how it's very interesting. He's a guy who's I remember. He's a guy who's ex-special forces and stuff. And we were talking about how it's interesting that you bring police in to learn military tactics. And you're like, why are you learning military tactics when you're not dealing with a military force? Like you're not fighting enemy combatants. And also with the military, bro, you gotta go over here, man. Let me try to comment. Go over there. Also with the military, they have rules of engagement and they're dealing with different things. Where if a police officer doesn't have that same context,
Zero
but they have
context
those
and
tools.
accountability.
So you don't have the context, you don't have the training, you don't have all these other things, but you're using it. So that's why you have people throwing flashbangs through windows, killing children,
Yeah.
doing no knocks and shooting everything that moves.
Right.
Yeah.
It's not the thing. Like it's not applicable. So it's very, very strange to say why would you even militarize when you're not facing. So but it's funny
a
because
war on the people. It's a war on the people.
yeah, it's interesting because he lived that life, and he's just like, why are we doing this for civilian engagements? Like, and even
When you asked about a book earlier, the book I mentioned was called Rise of the Warrior Cop.
Oh yeah. That's the one I was going to reference. Oh god, he got to it first. Hey Dante, remember from now on I get the books first. They don't get the books.
I got you, bro. I got you.
But it's
I've actually I was telling him earlier, man, when he brought it up to me, he was telling me some things about it and everything. I've actually downloaded the book already and just read like some cliff notes on it, man. This book is very interesting. I'm gonna get into it tonight and do some reading. But yeah, based off of what I read from the cliff notes, you should definitely read this book. Definitely read this book. It's definitely a good read.
Okay, so let's get ready to conclude because it looks like my family's about to maraud me.
Oh yeah, here they come.
So,
Marauders.
I know, yeah. I'm being besieged by them. So I appreciate you getting on. Let's try to let's do a couple of different things. For one thing, for mutual aid and development, community strengthening, you have some articles, books, people you suggest, Kamau. I'll try to look up something along those lines too, and then we can talk more. I got the one book that we're going to use for Militarization, Rise of the Warrior Cop. I'll try to have something that I add on to that. Let's see when we can get together next, but I think we could talk more about abolishment, different systems of management. I don't want to use police. And other things along those lines, because I think it's very important, man. Like, I know growing up, I never had the impulse to call a cop for anything. I would handle it myself or get people to handle it. And I know the few times I did try to call cops for stuff, they were wholly unuseful.
Same.
Yeah,
A few times you're like, well, maybe this is it's not. It's never.
No. So we could delve into that more in terms of like, what do you do as a alternative to calling cops, and then I guess what to use cops for. I mean, unless I want to file a report or get like a docket number or something, like, I don't know. Just doing myself. So, all right. Well, thank you, bro. I appreciate you getting on, Kamau. Dante, you got anything you want to say in closing?
Just want to mention like my favorite mutual aid program. They have this like pretty much around the world in every city. It's a thing called Food Not Bombs. And essentially all they do is feed people. Sometimes they get involved with training. Sometimes they get involved with medical stuff. But mostly they just provide supplies and food where it's needed.
So Food Not Bombs is a website? Is that
if you look up Food Not Bombs on Google or on Facebook, something will come up. There's typically they're all very cell-like, so they all like organize around themselves within whatever area they are.
Okay.
So it's not like there's a national, but oftentimes they communicate with each other, depending on where it needs. So I'm sure right now Food Not Bombs in like Dallas is probably doing a lot of work,
Okay. All right, cool. Do you have anything? I know, are you still doing art for a profession? Like, what are you doing in terms of people following, and how can people support you, Kamau?
Check out my Instagram.
Okay.
Rebel Scum 215. Also at Kamau Mshale.
All right. How you spell Mshale?
MSHALE, KAMAU MSHALE.
All right, cool. So follow, support the brother. There's a big thing that we need to do more of, the supporting people, small business, stuff like that. We support Beyonce and Jay-Z. They don't need us right now. They never needed us, really. They all right. They part of the selective few who drink from the horn of Beelzebub or whatever. He's going down the rabbit hole. Anyway, as always, the Health Defense Solutions, you got healthdefensesolutions.com. You got the Instagram, YouTube, podcast. We offer free courses once a month on, as you were saying, reliability, medical aid, personal protection, and armed stuff. We offer that once a month. We do virtual small group stuff. We work a lot with Delaware Valley Sports Center up in the Northeast. I like Tony, those guys, Joe. If you need anything, got questions, you can always email us at healthdefensesolutions@gmail.com. Call us 484-441-3193. And let us know. I mean, we'll help you. If we can't help you, we'll point you in the direction that can, Anything you want to say, Dante?
I know, man. Brother Kamau, good meeting you, man. Glad to be on here with you, man. Good conversation and everything. For me, man, as always, stay trained, stay prepared, stay safe.
All right, thank you. All right, have a good one, bro. I'll get at you, Kamau. And everyone else, remember, stay safe and bring success from within. All right, thank you. Peace.
Yeah.
See ya.